independent. So anywhere within that 2 gigahertz of spectrum, you can have one tuner on HF and the other tuner on VHF or UHF. That's proven to be a very popular feature. We can also do, if I go onto here, we can also do some nice things with diversity. So we can take the two tuners, and because they are time and phase coherent, we can do noise cancelling. And we've also got a feature inside Uno already, SDRuno already, that enables you to combine the two tuner inputs and improve your signal to noise ratio. This slide here is just showing that you can monitor two very widely spaced bands simultaneously with a single device, single RSP duo. And what happens is that the two tuners are totally independent in as much as they run in two instances of SDRuno. So they're totally separate in this mode. Or as I said, in diversity mode, you can combine the two tuners together to improve your signal to noise ratio. So here we can see, this is just an example. So you can be listening to air traffic control on one tuner, and you can use the ADSB software on the other tuner, which is another quite popular application to monitor the aircraft locations as well as listen to the ATC at the same time. So this is what I was talking about, diversity tuning. We have an additional panel that pops up if you want to use this mode, where you can adjust the phase and amplitude relationship between the two tuners to improve the signal to noise ratio. And there's an automatic mode inside Uno where it will constantly monitor the two inputs and always keep you to the maximum SNR, or you can turn the automatic mode off and use it manually. And if you go to the opposite phase of where the maximum SNR is, you can also use it for noise cancelling as well. And here we've got, in fact, this is exactly what we've got here. So we've got a Bonito mega dipole on one tuner, we've got a mini whip on the other tuner, and we're using the signal on one of the tuners to actually cancel out the noise on another tuner. So that's our three devices that are in production right now. This is a chart that's on our website, so you can kind of compare. I always tell people always ask, which one should I go for? And I always say that you should work out what your use case is and then go from there. They've all got really good benefits, either in terms of price or capability. You know, if you want to use diversity, it's obviously the Duo. If you're a medium wave DXer, that's obviously a DX. And if you just want one, or even I know people that have got more 1As because they want to use them for, maybe they want to hook one up as a pan adapter to their rig, and then they want to take one out and about with their laptop. And so, you know, I would think about how you want to use them before you actually go ahead and buy them. This is just a snapshot of our software. This is SDRuno. Some people kind of look at this and think that it is completely too complex to use. It's I would say that we've got lots of videos. Mike's done a whole ton of videos on SDRuno and how to get up and running, really quickly. And really, I say to people all the time, SDRuno is as complicated or as easy as you want it to be. It's got lots of features in it to do some really cool things with audio, AGC, and you've got notch filters and wideband noise cancellation. It's got a ton of features. But if you just want to tune to a frequency, it's very dead easy to do that. And like I said, we've got lots of videos on our YouTube site that covers everything from sort of basic starting up with SDRuno to some of the more advanced features like wideband noise cancelling. And Mike does a great job of taking you through each of these use cases step by step, and so that you can follow exactly what he's doing and get the best use out of it. I'll come on to SDRuno in a bit, but when we talk about plugins and stuff like that, a bit more of the advanced stuff. This is just an example of we've got band framing inside SDRuno. So as I was saying earlier, you can point and click on a band, and it will frame the band for you in the spectrum display. So it will so you don't have to navigate yourself and find a signal, find the band of interest, then start zooming. You can just press on any of the buttons and it will frame that particular band. This is the roadmap, which is slightly out of date now. I'll come back to that and talk about that in a minute. And as I was saying earlier, the applications for SDR are just huge. There's so much you can do with a software-defined radio, and there's just a few listed here. If anybody's interested in getting any of this material afterwards, let myself or Andy know, and we'll get you the material if you want to maybe show somebody else. This is and just sort of talking a bit about how to use the RSP as a pan adapter. The only thing about to really remember when using the RSP as a pan adapter is that it's obviously connected to your rig the whole time, and you just have to be careful that the input of the RSP is protected when you're transmitting, because I know some of you guys can generate quite a lot of power out of your transceivers. So we recommend I think we can burst up to 10 dBm, but constant power should be no more than 0 dBm into the receiver. So you can either use protected outputs of the transceiver. Some transceivers already have like an RF out that are already protected when you're transmitting, or there's a switch that we recommend, which is the MFJ 1708 SDR switch. That protects basically grounds the RSP input when you're transmitting. Some people think disconnecting the USB cable helps them. Well, it doesn't. If your RSP is connected on the antenna, even if there is no power to the RSP, you've still got to make sure that input is protected when you're transmitting. Another example of what you can do with an SDR is, and again, Mike's done a great video on this, Inmarsat signals using a very simple patch antenna, cheap antenna, and we've got you do multiple applications at the same time, so we can listen to different stations or send the data off to different applications to do digital decoding. To other applications that you might already have on your system, yeah, you obviously don't need to have this connected to your transceiver to be a pan adapter. It is a standalone pan adapter. It doesn't matter what antenna it's connected to. So we've got the GO satellite reception as well. You can get some great satellite images. Weather faxes. I mean, there's a whole range of stuff. We've got lots of videos, lots of information on our website. We've got a searchable catalog of documents, videos, papers that we've put together, all sorts of stuff. It's just a searchable database for everything that's related to RSPs, and not only stuff that we've produced. It's also got documents and videos that other people have produced and let us know about. It's just a massive searchable database that you can use from our website. If you go to our website, it's on the top banner. I can show you the website shortly. Mike's also got his own. It's like a sister YouTube channel called SDRplay Ham Guides, and this is more this is more tuned to sort of ham radio applications, but like I say, Mike does videos for both channels, and I would recommend that you check both of them out. Some great information on both channels. We've got a Facebook page for those of you that use Facebook. We've got some groups on Facebook. I think the SDRplay group is either at 15,000 people, or it's very, very close to being 15,000 people. It's quite an amazing group, and it's full of very, very helpful people. You have a problem just go in there and submit a question, and you'll get lots and lots of help. We've also got so there's various forums. There's a groups.io forum. There's another one that's on SDRplayusers.net. Like I say, if all of this information is kind of going off the screen a bit too quick, we can always provide it all to you later, and via either ourselves or through Andy. And we have full support. So if you buy a product from us, we don't just sell you the device and tell you to kind of go off and sort it all out yourself. If you have a problem, we've got full support on our website. It will go through to a ticket system, raise a ticket, and we'll make sure that you get up and running. And even if that requires logging into your machine, if you're really having problems, we can do that as well. So that's kind of all the slides I had. So I don't know if we want to kind of take any questions on that, because it was a lot of information there. But we can stop at that point and take some questions before we kind of go into some of the software-y stuff. I'm just looking at the chat here. Is there anything there for me to? I think Mike's been jumping in and answering. No, that's all good. As I see. I don't know, Andy. I don't know how we want to do this. Do you want to take some questions now?
Why don't we take some questions? Take some questions about the products, and then we can go on to the software. That'd be
sure. If anyone's got questions about the actual hardware, we can. I don't know how you're going to do this. Do we raise hands, or do people unmute themselves?
No, they can unmute. They can unmute themselves, Andy, and then ask us. So if they do that, then at least it stops everybody jumping in all at once and blasting your eardrums out.
Sure.
Hi, Andy. It's Steve Maskery here from Chester in the UK, G6FDK.
Hiya.
I've got a few questions which hopefully you can, if I rattle through them, you can probably answer them fairly quickly. In the proximity of Wi-Fi devices like routers and access points and so on, and LTE modems, are there any significant risks there to the inputs of my RSP Duo?
Well, in theory, no. But as we all know, some of these products don't always have the right emissions that they should have. Right. So what you can do, I don't actually have one here myself, but I always make sure that the USB cables that I use have always got good ferrites on either end.
Right.
Or a toroid, and you can sort of wrap the cable around there. If you've got laptops, sometimes running on a battery can help you rather than the mains. It just depends how noisy your environment is, really. But I would say that's pretty much all I do, is make sure that I've got decent ferrites and on good USB cables.
Good. Okay. Any comments about maximum length of USB cable?
It will be the longer the cable, you will have a problem. This system, I won't dive into too much of the technical details about the USB system that this uses, but a lot of people say, I've got a dongle, it works, this doesn't. And the problem is that this uses, there are two forms of transport on USB. There's bulk mode, which things like dongles use, printers use. It's a fire and forget system. You fire off the data, and whenever it gets there is whenever it gets there. And the system determines how that data flows. With our devices, we use isochronous mode, which means that it's, and this is what high-end cameras use, like video cameras use. It is a guaranteed bandwidth system. And so when it starts up, it grabs the amount of bandwidth that it requires, and it holds on to that bandwidth for the duration of the stream. But the difference between that and bulk mode is there's no error recovery with isochronous mode. So whereas with bulk mode, if you get errors in packets because you've got really long cable and you've got timing errors, what will happen is you'll get extra latency, but it will recover. So all that'll happen is you'll just get more of a delay. But with our system, there's no error recovery. So if you get errors in the packets, you get drop data.
Okay.
And so I would recommend no more than about 2 meters.
That's fine. Okay.
Some people use, these powered repeater cables and all this kind of stuff, and some people have had great success with them, and others haven't. But I would recommend sort of sticking to a fairly short cable if you can.
Okay. So if, for example, I've looked at the video with, I think it was a Raspberry Pi and the Virtual Here software.
Well, Virtual Here is a different beast altogether. That's quite that was quite a revelation when we came across Virtual Here.
Yeah.
So what that enables you to do is that enables you to put your Raspberry Pi with your antenna, and then have a length of network cable back to wherever your PC is, and as long as you can guarantee that is a gigabit connection between the two, you'll get full data rate. And so that means that you can put the Raspberry Pi with your antenna, which maybe you can then locate it maybe in a quieter location that right next to where your PC is. And as long as you've got a gigabit Ethernet connection between your Raspberry Pi and your PC, then you can operate the RSP as if it's sat right next to the PC.
Yeah, I don't know how noisy the Raspberry Pi is in terms of spurs off it and that sort of thing.
No, in our experience, we not had a problem with that at all.
Good. Okay.
But I would say if you're using Raspberry Pis, I wouldn't go older than a 3.
No.
And a 4 if you can, because the difference between 3 and 4 is quite significant. The Raspberry Pi 3s share the USB and the network port are shared bandwidth.
Yeah.
Whereas the Raspberry Pi 4, they're separate. Yeah. So you will always get a lot more bandwidth through a Raspberry Pi 4 than you will a 3.
Okay, that's good. Happen to have one of those, which is nice. The reason I mentioned just very briefly, I don't want to hog this, sounds like I might be doing already, the Wi-Fi and the LTE signals, am I risking any potential damage? That was really my main question rather than the noise. They're generally low power signals anyway.
Yeah. No, you've got to get to above 10 dB plus 10 dBm before you start that's on the input of the antenna port.
Yeah.
Before you start doing any damage. So that won't be an issue.
Good. Okay. With the RSP Duo, I'll just use a very simple example. Let's say that I want to have 2 different radio stations that I'm listening to, and can I use 2 virtual cables and treat them as 2 separate streams? This is a bit more involved. It may be better if I have a separate conversation about why I want to do this, but to then put those streams with IceCast or whatever onto a local area network.
No. So what Virtual Here does for you essentially is just replace the USB cable.
Right.
If you just treat it as that, you can't separate them and take them 2 different places.
No. Okay.
It's a single USB path through a single network cable.
Understood.
To a PC. Okay.
Let's assume that it isn't Virtual Here that's there then, and it's just a normal Intel PC that's a laptop or whatever. Can I use 2 virtual cables and have the 2 separate audios going into the Windows mixer, for example?
Yeah, so you can have 2 instances of SDRuno, one on each tuner,
Yeah.
And you can have two virtual audio cables.
Yeah.
One from each instance, and you can do completely different things with them.
Right.
So,
okay. That's super. Good. I haven't
absolutely
tried
not a
it yet, so I will give it a try. And finally, you'll be pleased to hear, do you think you will be at Friedrichshafen? I mean, any intelligence on that as a
I haven't heard what what events are on this year. I think, given where we are, I think it's probably unlikely that we'll attend any events this year.
Okay.
But I kind of would like to see if we can make up for that the year after and try and get to as many events as we can, because we normally, I mean, personally, I try and do Friedrichshafen and Dayton every year.
Yeah.
And then I do some in the UK, which are a bit easier to get to. There are some others that we keep getting asked to go to. I know Mike goes to, I know Mike and Steve, they go to some over in the US, some different ones. It's a real shame because I get something different out of the events that the others get. I mean, it's I kind of a bit of a sponge when I go to these events, and I try and pick up what people are doing with the software, and then I bring that back to base, and then we have a sort of a debrief after the event, and we talk about all the good stuff and all the bad stuff. It all goes in the pot, and that then normally forms the basis of what we're doing with Uno and with other software and other platforms. Yeah. So it's been a real shame not to have that sort of instant feedback that you get at the shows.
Yeah.
So as soon as we can get back out there, I really think we should we'll try and do as much as we can.
Great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your answers on that. Thank you very much, and thank you to the others for hearing me out at least. Anyway. Cheers, Andy.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to speak to you.
Bye.
Yeah, it's very interesting actually. I hadn't thought about splitting out the audios like that. That's good. Anybody else for any more questions?
I've got a question. Are these boxes repairable?
So we have two different repairs. So if it's within the warranty period and it's got a fault, then we'll obviously repair it under the warranty. If it's either damaged that you've maybe put too much power into it, or it's outside of the warranty period, then we do have a process where you can come back to us and get a repair that way. It normally only works on the current production models, like the 1A, the DX, and the Duo. I don't know, what is that? You've got a DX, is that?
That's a Duo.
That's a Duo you got there. Okay.
It's an early one.
Okay. Well, if it's outside of warranty but you've got a problem with it, you can always come through to our support system and we'll help you.
A couple of months ago, when we had the snow, my antennas iced up, and I didn't notice it and went straight into FT8, started transmitting away, and it all collapsed. And I thought, well, that's funny. My pan adapter's not working anymore. So I think it's probably had some RF up it.
Okay.
Is it worth repairing? I bought another one and I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, if you come through to our ticket system and explain what's happened,
Yeah.
Then we'll explain what the process is and what the costs are. I don't know them off the top of my head, but you can then at that point decide whether that's something you want to go ahead with or not.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, just come to our website under SDRplay.com/help, and if you navigate your way through to the ticket system, just sort of just basically put down what you've just said to me, and we'll help you out.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Keith. Hope you get that sorted. Anyone else for a question?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Brad.
A thanks to Mike for answering all the texts on the side. I sure like this meeting you've set up, and it's very convenient for us in the Midwest United States. So the timing is good. My question is I'm brand new general. and I'm interested in learning Morse and CW. I thought I saw someone had an add-in that might do some decoding. And so do you tolerate add-ins? Do you encourage add-ins if they're not coming from your company? How does all that work?
Absolutely. So what we created in the last sort of 6 months or so in SDRuno is a plugin system. It's a fully documented system which we provide templates for and help for, and we encourage everybody and anybody who to either try and join on some of the forums and suggest some plugins to be created, or to help in actually creating them. There are there are quite a number of plugins that have already appeared, and there's a guy called Jan van Katwijk who produced. He just came up with. I mean, Jan's been writing software for the RSP for years, but it's always been in his standalone software. And we talked to him about the plugin system, and he very graciously said, "Hey, I can turn these into plugins." So very, very quickly, he came up with 4 plugins straight away. I think it's RTTY, CW. There's 2 others. I've got them here.
Navtext and MFSK.
There you go. So well done. Thanks, Mike. So he's come up with those, and yeah, and they now obviously all this community stuff is all quite new. So some of it might have problems, but the guys that all create these plugins, they're all looking for feedback, and they're all very happy to to fix any issues that they find. But there definitely is a CW decoder that's a plugin to SDRuno.
Nice.
Yeah, and when I can talk a bit more about plugins after we've sort of had some questions.
That might be a good idea.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. So lots of good stuff coming.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Any other questions, guys? And Brad, we did this specially for you at this time of day, so we're glad you can make it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I work with folks from UK and Japan all the time, so
we're glad to help. Any other questions, guys? So we'll move on to the next.
Yeah, Graham Stevens, G6HPC.
Go ahead, Graham.
I've got an MFJ 1708B, and I'm using my SDR as a pan adapter. When I transmit, it cancels mute in SDRuno. Is this a hardware problem or a software problem, do you think?
Sorry, you mean it cancels the mute?
Yeah, if I select mute in SDRuno, every time I transmit, it turns the
it will. I think the problem there is it's a toggle. So if you don't mute before you, if you're unmuted, and then you push the talk, then it'll mute for you. Because you're already muted, when you're pushing to talk, it's unmuting for you. It's kind of almost the other way around. You want to use it. Right. Okay. I'll give that a go. Thank you. So try that. If it's not working as you expect it, then come through to our ticket system and we'll have a look at it for you. Okay. But that's generally how it's supposed to work. It's a toggle. It's a toggle system. Right. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Gosh, it's good for its first aid, isn't it? It's good, isn't it? Any other questions, guys?
I've got one for you, Andy. And my question is, I've got the board fitted to the 7300, which puts my Duo to ground on transmit, which is quite effective for me. But before that, I was actually using the MFJ 1708B, the transmit receive switch.
Yep.
So now, is that still kind of the mainstream, not recommendation, but obviously the mainstream device that everybody uses? Because I've now got a second rig and I want to set up an SDR unit on that. And my first thoughts were, had anything moved on to where people were now using another device to put the to put the SDR unit to ground, or is the MFJ still the best one, the MFJ 1708B?
Well, I think Mike's probably a better person on that to answer, but I think it's correct. That's still current, Mike, is that right?
You can use the 1708 version B because it will keep everything within a safe level so you don't blow the input of the RSP. But there's other devices. You have a DX Engineering RTR1, RTR2. There's a couple of units coming out of China. There is one made by, it's off the top of my head, but I can't think of it. But there's a few of them. They're generally all the same. You can actually get a 12-volt Dow key off eBay, and as long as you send it the signal to energize the relay, you'll be perfectly safe. But you can surely use the 1708 again.
Oh, okie dokie. Fantastic. Yeah. Cheers, Mike. Thank you.
Mike, is there a list of that available somewhere? Is that on your site as well? Because
I have a personal list, but I can, if anybody has any questions, just reach out to the company and we'll give you the list.
Yeah, I think that'd be useful because a lot of people won't necessarily know all the different models to choose, and it'd be quite helpful.
We recommend the MFJ because we worked with MFJ on the version B for certain specifications that they met that we requested. So the Model B SDR is very, very good.
Well, that's worth knowing.
And it's the least expensive out of the bunch. When you go to the DX Engineering, it gets up there. It's like $300 USD. I don't know what that would convert to pounds, but it does get a little bit costly.
But also, we've got the additional cost these days of freight, and I think the MFJ is readily available in the UK anyway, so that's worth it.
Most important thing is if anybody's going to use a switch, an automatic RF switch, make sure you're sending it the PTT signals. This way, when you push the talk, it triggers the relay in the device. They have RF sense, but that is your backup device. Never use RF sense to switch. Always use the PTT line.
Yeah, good advice. Good advice. If there aren't any more questions, maybe Andy can go on to part 2 of the movie.
Andy, just a very quick question. Has anybody written any software to decode DVB-T audio? I'm not talking about the pictures particularly, but to tune to DVB-T, which is certainly the UK, European. It's different in America. I think it's ASC, isn't it? The digital TV standard. Has anybody done anything with that?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. Okay.
No.
Thanks.
There potentially was a route for us to do something some time ago, but I don't think that's going to be a possibility now. I mean, we've just got so much resource tied up with everything else. But yeah, no, not as far as I'm aware.
No. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, guys, if we can all mute again and allow Mike and Andy to carry on. Andy, really, I don't want to drop Mike in it, bless him. So we'll let Andy go on. If the rest of us can mute, that'd be great. Cheers.
Okay, so what I was just going to do was just switch over to our. Well, let me just talk a little bit about software. So, obviously, you've got the two halves of this equation. You've obviously got to have the hardware that's capable of doing what you want to do, but you've also got to have the software, and the two got to go hand in hand. And when we started, we were told by a number of people, just put out a library, an API library that controls your hardware, and loads of software will just appear for your device. And it didn't happen. And we sort of struggled, and we realized that we did actually need our own software that could demonstrate the full capability of the product. And when we came up with the idea for the Duo, that became even more important because there aren't applications out there that take two streams in to do stuff with. So we had the great fortune of talking to the guy who developed an application called Studio One, which was a paid-for software product, about 200 and something euros, I think it was, a license. He had kind of got a bit burnt out with the whole thing, and so we went through and we acquired that, and that's what became SDRuno. So before we acquired it in 2016, it had already had about 6 odd years, I think, of development before then, and it was a very well established application. And so let me just quickly show you. So this is basically it here. And so, but it was all very ingrained in Windows. It was it was used the registry for everything. All of the audio stuff was all Windows. It is still, not so much now, but it is still a Windows application. And we decided that some time ago is that we would, because we really want to support other platforms, and so we have a commitment to move SDRuno over to Mac and Linux desktop platforms. It won't appear on the Raspberry Pi, but it will appear on Linux and Mac, and that's part of our roadmap, which I can show you in a bit. But that's kind of the direction we're going. And every version of Uno, I always do something to make it less Windows, less hooked into Windows. So people say that, well, we keep talking about cross-platform when we've done nothing about it. Well, that's actually strictly not true. I started sort of unhooking SDRuno from Windows a long time ago, and every version I always make sure that I'm sort of still on that path to cross-platform. And also with respect to the Raspberry Pi platform, we do fully support that. We produce a downloadable image that you can just download and burn to an SD card and boot straight into boot that straight up. It has lots of different bits of software on there, GQRX, GNU Radio, Cubic SDR, Dump 1090. All that software is all pre-installed and tested and working. So if you are on a Raspberry Pi and you want to kind of a lot of people want to use sort of Linux platforms, but don't want to kind of get involved in all of the building process. And so whatever we produce is always going to be a download. It's a kind of a point and click stuff. We don't really produce stuff that that you just need to do a lot of manual intervention with to get up and running. We also now provide scripts. So if people want to add our software and some other software that we support to an existing image that they're already using on Raspberry Pi, we now provide scripts that you can just run, and it will just do all the building for you. So there's sort of 2 ways to get up and running on a Raspberry Pi platform. But I'll just talk about SDRuno for a bit. This is our flagship sort of SDR application software. It's a general purpose SDR application. You can see in the large window here, we have an input spectrum window that will visualize anywhere up to 10 megahertz of spectrum. The small window up in the right hand corner here, this is the filtered spectrum. So you see this dark area here in the main window. That is defined by filter bandwidths that are set up in this window, and the demodulated spectrum is then shown up in this smaller area here. We've got things like a built-in scanner, so we could do two different types of scanning. We could do range scanning, so you can specify a start and a stop and a step frequency, and it will sit there and scan that very, very quickly. I think we can do the mil-air band in like less than a couple of seconds. There is another scanner, which is a memory panel scan. So here we have in this panel down on the left-hand side here, we have a whole range of frequencies which you can add to. Mike has lots of different files full of frequencies, and you can scan through. You can scan through those. It is scanning the memory panel is slower than doing a range scan, but I'll come onto the roadmap in a minute, and I'll explain that we're doing something about that. Then there's a built into Uno, we have an IQ recorder, so you can record the entire input spectrum and then play that back and analyze it as if it was live. So you can record a whole chunk of spectrum. Let's say you want to, there's lots going on in a particular band, and you record, say, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes of that entire band. You can then play that back and then click on the frequencies that you weren't quick enough to get to the first time, and you can rewind it and go forwards, and you can actually then listen to all of those different stations or CQ events or whatever they happen to be, and even send that off to a decoder. So you may want to, you may record, so like 20 minutes of CW, and then you can then go back and reanalyze that offline. Or maybe you want to capture a satellite pass that's in the middle of the night. You can set the timer and record a chunk of spectrum in the middle of the night, and then the following day you can then analyze that as if you were sitting there at the time of the satellite pass. So that's a very useful feature. This sort of control panel up here with the frequency in it is, I think the original intention was that was designed to sort of look like a transceiver input. But yeah, it's got the buttons and the frequency display, and also the keypad with all the band controls. So you've got hand lower, hand upper, and broadcast bands. And you can select any one of these bands and it will just frame, any of those bands, so the 40-meter band or 60 or whatever it is. And then this window up in the top right left-hand corner, which is the main panel, really this is where all the hardware, all the hardware configuration goes in here. What tuner you're on, whether you want the bias T enabled, whether you want the hardware notches enabled. So we've got broadcast notches for medium wave and FM, and also DAB band notches that you can. So they're hardware notches, but they're software selectable. What sample rate, how much of visible spectrum you want to see, and if you've got a duo, you can select whether you want to run it in single tuner mode, which is what we've got now, but you can run it in dual tuner mode, so you can run the two tuners independently, or you can run it in diversity mode, where, as I said before, you can use those two inputs to either combine them together or use one to cancel the noise out of the other. So all of the hardware configuration is done up here, and this panel over here is really what I'll talk a little bit about now, is the plugins. So a new feature that we added to Uno was the ability for external plugins to be written. We recognized that we're spending, well, I mean, we're a very, very small team. I'm the only one that's dedicated to Uno software development, and we recognize that I am the bottleneck for a lot of the functions that people want to see. So we decided to add a plugin system, which essentially now there's now like a multiple track approach, where I will continue to develop the core functionality that we have committed on the roadmap into SDRuno. But aside from that, people can now develop their own plugins to do decoders or controller, third-party controller support, or weather facts. So basically, there's just lots of different applications that could be done by plugins, and so that's what's happened. And we've got some really great guys who have taken that. I mean, we've done some plugins ourselves to sort of somewhat to demonstrate the capability of the plugin system. But we've also got some plugins that have been created by some really great guys. I don't know if you can see these particularly well, but we've got an audio recorder plugin, so you can not only record the whole IQ spectrum, but you can also record just the signal that you're on in either MP3 or WAV file format. We've got a DAB plugin, so those of you on this side of the of the Atlantic will be able to tune into DAB and DAB Plus stations. There's a DX cluster plugin, which enables you to visualize some so the DX cluster information on different bands. We have an MPX output plugin, which basically it takes the MPX output and puts it into applications like RDS Spy to do RDS decoding. And then other people have produced some. So Chris Malinsky over at Black Cat Systems has a plugin that basically takes the Uno data and formats it for his. He's got a whole array of applications that he calls, I think it's DX Toolbox, and this plugin takes data out of Uno and formats it for all of his software. We've got a Contour Shuttle plugin. So anybody that's got Contour Shuttle controllers, and I'll quickly show you what they are because I have them here. So this is a Shuttle Express, which is literally a dial with a jog wheel and some buttons around the outside. That's the sort of simple controller. And there's a more complex controller, which is this one, a bit bigger, more buttons. It's got some translucent pads on here that you can put labels on what these buttons do. And a guy called Eddie McDonald wrote a plugin to it's a very, very good plugin. I did a video on it. It's on our YouTube channel. So this plugin here allows proper control of all the SDRuno functionality with those controllers. As I said before, a guy called Jan van Katwijk has done some decoders, which I don't have on this list, but this is his latest one. This is a Weatherfax decoder that we've just started playing with. That's sort of in beta. In fact, Jan's going off to do a DRM decoder. So I know maybe some people here might be familiar with the Dream software for DRM. I've seen people sort of tearing their hair out sometimes with getting Dream to work. Jan's written his own DRM decoder. So he's going to be doing a plugin for that. We've got Fran, which is a very popular plugin by a guy called Eric Cottrell, which takes a list, it takes a database list and then annotates all of those frequencies onto the spectrum display, which is really nice. And there's an audio equalizer plugin from Chris Malinsky over at Black Cat. Now this is a paid for application, paid for plugin. That isn't anything to do with us. And so, anybody creating plugins, they could do them, make them free, they can charge for them, whatever. That's something we don't get involved in. But we just provide the framework and then allow, for Chris, this is how he makes his living. Some of the other guys that I think some of them are retired or kind of doing it as a bit of an offshoot of whatever else they're doing. So obviously different people will have different requirements. But Chris earns his living from software. So all of his plugins though you can try them before you buy them. So you can try them and see whether they're any, they actually do what you want them to do. But we're really trying to support anybody that wants to develop a plugin. We try and help them as much as possible. We've got, like I said, we did a video on the plugin system, how to get up and running with the template that we provide, and we have very healthy discussions on the different forums or email about how to use certain parts of the plugin system. But it's been really exciting to see the sort of stuff that has been produced and the stuff that is going to be produced. I know Eddie is also working on an accessibility plugin. So for those that that haven't got great sight, it will read out to you the controls and that sort of stuff. So that's another. I think that's another great one that Eddie will be producing pretty soon. So plugins are a great way to get all of this, all this functionality that we, if it was on our to-do list, it'll still be there, because we've got. What I'll do is I'll show you the roadmap and tell you exactly what we're doing. Tell you exactly what we're doing with SDRuno. There we go. So hopefully you can see the web page. This is you can go to our website and see all this information. We update it whenever we have stuff to update. So the current version of SDRuno is 1.40.2. That's been out and released in November. We're currently working on version 1.41. And really the last thing to be done for that, which is what I'm working on at the moment, which is a generic scheduling function. This is quite quite exciting. So you'll be able to specify a sort of a generic start-stop event system to do pretty much anything within SDRuno, whether that's starting and stopping the stream, doing an IQ record, starting a scan, starting and stopping plugins. You'll be able to do all of that through unattended scheduling system, and it will cope for either a single event or repeated events. And so that's what I'm trying to get finished at the moment. We hope that 1.41 will be out soon. Then going on beyond that, 1.42 is another exciting long-term commitment, which is remote operation. So there'll be a brand new TCP server. It'll be cross-platform. So you'll be able to run the server on any of our supported platforms, Raspberry Pi, Linux, Mac, Windows, and then that will then talk to SDRuno as the client. So that's kind of a bit like it's a bit like the virtual here system, but this is going to work differently. So this will work on high bandwidth networks, and it'll also work on low bandwidth networks. We've got some really great stuff to it'll also support all the RSPs, diversity, the whole shooting match. And so that's going to be coming in 1.42. And then 1.43, we're going to revisit the scanner. We're going to do things like statistics logging, improve the memory panel scan speed, and some other stuff there. We're going to make the memory panel more usable. You'll have a threshold that is specific to each frequency rather than the entire scan. Because for those of you that know that when you go across certain band boundaries in SDRuno, the noise floor can either rise or fall. So the threshold that you started with at the beginning of the scan might not be appropriate for when you get to the end of the scan. And so we're going to address issues like that, and we're going to add some more customization. So things like the band buttons will be customizable. The filter bandwidth buttons will be customizable, and when you adjust when you manually adjust the filter settings in the SP2 window, the auxiliary window, those will save as well. So a lot of people kind of get fed up that they have to keep resetting those every time they start SDRuno. So all of that information is going to be saved as well. So 1.43 is the customized. It's really a lot of customization with scanner improvements. And then we've got 2.0, which is where we go cross-platform, and we'll have to add things like hamlib support because OmniRig is Windows only. And we're going to also revisit the GUI. The GUI look and feel is very interesting. When we first got SDRuno back in 2016, nobody liked the GUI whatsoever. People didn't like the fact that it was multiple panels. They didn't like that the buttons were a certain size and that the windows weren't stretchable. And it wasn't something that we could address quickly because we had a lot of integration work to do with the RSPs. So the GUI has always been something that we have put on our roadmap to address. The interesting thing is now when I talk to people about SDRuno, they say, "Hey, it's great. I could put all these panels wherever I want them, and I've got lots of different monitors, and I can do all this kind of stuff." So we kind of the changes that we'd have made in 2016 probably won't be the changes that we make now. It's just one of those strange things. It's what people get used to using, I guess. But we will have to change the look and feel of Uno. We won't throw out the good stuff. We will make it more intuitive. We'll have things like having the ability to lock windows together, so you can actually move it around as one window rather than 10 or 12 or however many you've got open, and it will hopefully look consistent across all the different platforms as well. So version 2 is a big job, but it is something that I am we all are very committed to develop. And people complain that it hasn't happened yesterday, and I kind of get that. I know that that's where people want us to be, but the on the route to 2.0, we do have to get these other things done, because some of these commitments have been around for years, and we just have to get them done. So that's kind of where we are with our software development, and also kind of maintaining sort of support for other platforms with other software. There's lots of software that's being created at the moment, and we're having conversations with all sorts of different developers on how to support our products. So, which is all good, and the vast majority of it is all free. Whatever we produce is free, but the vast majority of what I've seen so far from other people, it's all free stuff. So, which is all good, and it just all expands the capability of the RSP family. So that's kind of where we're at with Uno and plugins. I don't know if that's a good point to stop for questions.
Yeah, I think so, Andy. Yeah, it's brilliant. That's really good. I mean, I think it's very exciting, frankly. I do feel for you. I mean, I don't know if you get much time to play with your Star Wars anymore, but may the force be with you. That's what I can say. It sounds pretty good. I really am excited, and I do think, I said in the chat, I think it's amazing that you had the foresight to allow plugins to take place and everything, because I realize it helps your products as well, but nonetheless, there are a lot of developers that like to keep everything very close to them and not to go out further into community. So I think you did a brilliant job there.
Well, I mean, we've always had we've always been very, very transparent with what we're trying to do. And we're always very keen for people to use the API, but we recognize that using a low-level hardware API isn't really what people want to do. And you write something that works for one RSP, and then as soon as you finish that, we produce another RSP that works in a slightly different way. And where in Uno, we have to do all that work. We have to support all the RSPs. So it made sense to provide a plugin system where you didn't have to worry about what RSP was connected. If I want to do a scanning, if I want to scan something, or if I want to write a plugin to do, audio, the audio equalizer, then why do I care which one of these is plugged in? Yeah, you don't. It's something that Uno just deals with for you, and so you can just write a plugin to do, and like if you look at what Jan did, he had those 4 plugins. He literally produced them all in a weekend because he already had the core decoders. he didn't have to worry about all of the hardware stuff. He had the core decoders, and he hooked them up to the plug-in system, and it was quite amazing. He told me about them on a Friday, and then on a Monday he said, "Well, have you looked at them yet?" And I was like, "Didn't even know you did them."
No, it's brilliant.
I mean, it will continue to evolve as we have discussions with developers. There are sort of features that people want to see, and the plugin system will evolve and will extend. But there's been some amazing stuff already produced, which I'm just really gobsmacked about. So,
thanks, Andy. Are there any last few questions to go, folks?
Yeah, I've got one, Andy. Let me jump in a minute. Now, I'm looking at this roadmap with some interest because, as you know, the 1.42 remote operation SDRuno client, we've been discussing that for some long period of time now. So my question is, I noticed that you've already struck a couple of items off of 1.41 because you've got them on the 1.40.2.
Yeah.
So in time frame, and you know what I'm going to say because I do it all the time to you, but what kind of time frame am I looking at for 1.42 to be released?
I've only ever given one date
out
to someone, and I got massively burned by it.
I know.
And so I don't do it anymore. All I can tell you is that 1.41 requires a scheduler to be finished. That's what I spend every day doing right now. So 1.41 is not far away.
Good. That's all right. No, that's all I need because that's a good indicator.
1.42 has two aspects to it. You've got the server aspect to it and the client aspect to it. You'll be pleased to know that the server aspect to it is already in progress. So we have somebody already developing the server aspect to it. And so I'm hopeful that 1.42 won't be that far behind 1.41. But I can't give dates or time frames because every day I drop my son off at school, I sit here, and you get days where just stuff happens, right? You know maybe 4 or 5 tickets will come in that need someone to look at them, or something will happen. Most of the days I can focus and I can just get on stuff with Uno, but there are days when I can't. And so I try to tell people that I'm as committed as anybody else to get Uno stuff done. But there has to be an allowance for stuff that happens. But so all I can say is that's, we're committed to that roadmap. I really want it to be all done sooner than later. But I'm sorry, I can't give timescales out because I can't get leaks.
Andy, I think it's good to know that you've been committed, and that's most important.
Yeah, they chain me to this chair, and they only unlock for special occasions. So,
God bless. No, I mean, I to be honest, and I'm sure, and I know Andy's exactly the same. You'd rather it come out and it works than to come out.
I mean, there are. I mean, for the remote server, there are solutions out there at the moment. They're not great. We know that they've got their own issues. You can sort of work around them, but it's by using those systems we know how to make a better one. And so we're pretty confident with 1.42 that we will have a system that has a lot of flexibility to cope for different scenarios. So it will work on your gigabit Ethernet. It will work across a wide area network. It will do all of these things. Obviously, the less bandwidth you have, maybe some of the functionality gets sort of pared down a bit, but that will all be explained when we kind of get there.
Well, I'm looking forward to Mike's videos. I'm sure he's got another 12 lined up there. So there's no problem. Are there any other questions from anyone before we wrap this up, the first part?
Yes, please. It's Graham Stevens again, G6HBC. Will version 1.41 address the tuning by clicking on the spectrum?
The IF output mode has been a bane of my life. I'd like to say yes, but there is a it's on the list. I hope I can get it. I hope I can get it done. It's that's what you're talking about, right? You're talking about the mode where you're locked to an IF output of a transceiver.
No, actually, I was thinking about when I'm looking at a spectrum and I see a signal that I'd like to listen to and click on it. I understand from the notes that you put out with 1.41 that 1.40 that didn't work.
No, so the only place that doesn't work is when you're locked to an IF output of a transceiver. In any other case, it just works. So
okay. Fine.
if I
download it and give it a try.
Hang on a minute, I've just.
Glad you said that, Andy.
I've got so many things open there. Hang on a minute, I can just. Yeah, but no. Under normal circumstances, you can just click on anywhere and it will just work. It's only with the IF output mode where you can't click on the spectrum.
Right. Okay.
And that's because I need to do something in Uno that hasn't been done before with respect to where you're clicking. What happens when you click? That needs to transpose to the center of the screen, and so there's just some maths that need to be worked out, really.
Right. Not a 5-minute job then.
Well, I just need to sit down and get my head around it and get it done, really. But let me just let me mute that. I mean, I haven't got a particularly great antenna on here, but you'll get the idea. Let me switch over to. Can you see that? It's a pretty crappy spectrum.
Yes, no problem.
But I can click anywhere here. You see the red line?
Yeah.
You can click anywhere. What some people do have a problem with, if they're in, say, like FM, wideband FM, with a really wide, you can't click in here.
No.
So people want to click in here. You can click and drag it.
Right. Okay.
But people click in here and go, hey, I've suddenly lost the ability to click the spectrum. Well, you haven't. It's just that it doesn't allow clicks in here. You can click anywhere out here and move it around.
Yeah. Okay.
Or if you want to drag it, you can click and drag it. But
okay. I realized.
Under normal circumstances, you can just click anywhere on the spectrum.
Okay, thank you. And the other one, very briefly, is when I'm in CW mode and I change band, it goes to either upper sideband or lower sideband.
So at the moment, so this is what I was saying about some of the customizations that are coming. So at the moment, when you click a band, it has in it hard coded what mode it should be in.
Oh, okay.
So if I click on 40 meters, then it will go to the lower sideband.
Yeah.
And then if you go, okay, I actually want CW, so you go CW, and then when you come back into 40 meters, it will go back to lower sideband.
Right.
That's just the way that the system. There's a lot of hard coding in the system at the moment. When we get to 1.43, that's when all the customizations will occur. So you can create your own band and call it, I don't know, Graham's 40 meter band, which has CW as its mode, and it will, you can set up whatever filters you want. And also up here in the I don't know if you can see the in here, but you've got these red lines. You can drag these filters in and out.
Yeah.
And again, when you switch bands, these all get reset.
Yes.
So again, in those in 1.43, all of that kind of customization stuff will stick with and so what we're going to have is there'll be in this band here, there'll be an additional one. I don't know what we'll call it, custom or something. Mm-hmm. So you'll be able to set these 10 buttons to do whatever you want them to do.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question.
Sorry.
Hello, it's Manu, Oscar November 4, Echo Mike from Belgium, but I don't know if you finished with your question, so I don't want to disturb now.
Yeah,
no, you go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It's just related to the IQ out and the bandwidth of 192 kilohertz that you can send via the IQ out. If I select a work band or another band which is not the standard amateur bands, I will be limited to 48 kilohertz.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a bug or a config that I need to change.
No, it's that is the way the system works at the moment. So if I select trying to explain this very well. No, you are absolutely right. Unless you're in an FM band, it will be 48 kilohertz, and that is something that we will be changing.
Okay.
Yeah, we will change. And in fact, what we've also talked about is increasing 192, because it doesn't necessarily need to be 192. We've talked about increasing that maximum bandwidth as well.
Maximum, that means up to
Well, I think digital FM in the States, it's more than 192, right? It's 250 or something,
250 or 260.
so we'll probably look at doing something like that.
Okay. Well, that the question was because just I'm sending the IQO to CW skimmer, and if I change the band, the bandwidth is decreased to 48 kilohertz. That means I need to change the CW skimmer when I change the band. So because the skimmer is not ready to handle this change, as far as I can see, because I'm not a specialist in the skimmer, but he seems to behave strangely because the band is not so wide. Okay.
Yeah. So with CW skimmer, you're using the IQ out. Oops. I don't know why that's done that. Are you using the IQ out button?
Yes.
In Uno. You are.
Yes.
Right.
So I'm selecting the mode and then I selecting IQ out. If I do not select IQ out, I will not see my my signal correctly. Right. I will just see the noise of the virtual audio cable.
Right. Okay. Yeah. If you select FM before you select IQ out, you'll get 192 kilohertz.
Okay, I will have a try on that. But the fact that it's in FM is that
makes no difference in IQ out because there's no demodulation.
Yes, of course. So because we are just before the mode calculation and implementation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
good. I will try.
Try that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Thank you very much. Any other questions, please?
Oh, and Manu, wideband. Make sure it's wideband FM.
Okay.
Not narrowband FM.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. No other questions? Well, I'd just like to say, Andy, that was absolutely fantastic. And Mike, thank you so much, because you've been working your little socks off in the chat, that's for sure. So thanks very much, both of you. And for everyone that's come along today, we had at the top whack 78 people. It was our highest number. I'll leave it over to Andy to wrap up the first part.
Me or your Andy?
Yeah.
Sorry, my Andy.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks very much for that. And yeah, it's all. I've learned quite a bit this evening just from you explaining the plugins, and I've already been downloading some. I'll give you some feedback. I'll drop you an email and let you know what's how I'm getting on with them.
Yep.
And
yeah. I mean, we always say that we don't want people to. I've met people at shows before, and they say, "Oh, I've had an RSP one for ages," and I say, "Oh, what are you do with it?" And they say, "Oh, I couldn't get it to work, so I've left it in the drawer." And I feel terrible. We don't want people to do that. We want people to get great use out of these things. So if people are struggling, whether it's plugins, SDRuno, or antennas or USB cables, there is lots and lots of places for help, whether it's on groups.io, whether it's on Facebook, whether you come through to our support. there will be lots of places to get help, so you can actually get the enjoyment out of these things. That's what they're about.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks very much, and thanks to you, Mike, as well, and your very kind offer to help some of the club members get up and running, because I do know that there's a few of them that have got them sitting on the side.
I mean, for some people who are, let's say, traditional transceiver users, I mean, I get a lot of people saying, I just want to use a dial, which I get.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to sort of sit and scroll up and down with the mouse. Some people maybe don't have the latest and greatest Windows or the latest and greatest PC, and they're not sure if, whatever the issue, there is going to be a format by which you can reach out to somebody, whether it's us directly or whether it's the people on, like I say, on all the user groups. There's definitely going to be somebody that can help you get up and running.
Cool, brilliant, fantastic. Well, thanks very much, Andy and Mike. And obviously, we're going to need to book you in for the next one, and we're going to have more questions, but we'll do that in the near future. So
very good,
very much,
very good. I really appreciate the invite. So thanks very much.
No, it's been brilliant. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you guys for letting me crash the party. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You can always crash the next ones as well, please. Yeah, take care, Mike, and that's really great. Cheers to you and you, Andy.
Okay. Anything else, or do you want us to sign off now? Or
I have a quick question, if I may put to you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Firstly, thank you very much, Andy and Mike, for your excellent presentation. You've talked an awful lot about the development of software, plugins, etc., which is very exciting. And just something that came across me just a minute ago was that is the hardware of the current units going to be able to cope with all of the various updates, and are the various updates going to be handled via firmware, or is it going to be a question of an updated hardware model that may have to be brought out to support the extra functionality?
So
I hope I've made myself clear. Sorry if I've rambled on.
Well, I think I understand what you say. So at the moment, the nice thing about the plugin system is that people developing plugins don't need to worry about what the hardware is connected. Uno takes care of that for you. So if we produce another model, then the people developing plugins won't have to worry about what that is or how it works. Uno will take care of that for you. So so from a plugin developer's point of view, you don't have to worry about, are these guys, am I going to just finish and then these guys are going to come out with something else? Or we will always make sure that the plugin system is fully compatible with whatever hardware is plugged into SDRuno.
Yeah, I was thinking more from, as a purchaser. Let's say, for instance, that I purchased one of your systems and then 6-9 months down the line, that particular piece of hardware is not going to cope with all the upgrades, etc., that have been.
Well, everything that we've done in SDRuno still works with the RSP1.
Yeah. And that was the other question I was going to ask. Was
we always make sure that it does.
Yeah, and those people that have got perhaps the older models, they're still going to be functional.
Oh yeah, people. Yeah, I mean, I still test with RSP1s. I've got a couple of RSP2s here that I use. We always make sure that that it works with RSP1s. In fact, some of the changes that we've made we've made some changes to the way the DAB plugin works specifically for the RSP1.
Yeah.
It wasn't working optimally for the RSP1, so we've made changes so that it does. So we always make sure that even though those products aren't sold, we recognise that we've got a lot of customers that still have them. So from a software point of view, that SDRuno still supports all of the whole product range.
That's great news. Thank you very much for answering that question. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all.
And thank you for your presentation once again. It's very interesting.
My pleasure.
I've got a thank you, really, Andy. Thanks for the presentation. But also, I liked your comments, what you said about work you were going to do on for poor-sighted people. I support a couple of blind guys. Well, they're really poorly sighted, more than blind, but and both are using Ham Radio Deluxe because I've been able to get into the GUI and change all the colours to things that they can see. And you or I wouldn't like it at all, but they can see it. And
Yeah.
that coupled with the readout that you get as you hover over a box, it tells you what it says. Not all software can handle that. And if you're going to go along that line, I think that's going to help a lot of poorly sighted people in the future.
Well, it's, I mean, anybody that looks at Uno will instantly recognize that it doesn't have a traditional GUI look and feel about it. And this wasn't obviously this was something that we inherited. It wasn't something that we designed, but it's a very, the whole look and feel of Uno is very customized, and it doesn't really interact very well with screen readers and that sort of thing. And so, like I said, the guy called Eddie McDonald has been working on an accessibility reader, and we're very happy to support him and get that, make sure that plugin works well. And then what we can do when we get to 2.0 and we redesign some of the GUI aspects to it, we will obviously take accessibility on board, and so maybe not have so much of a reliance on third-party plugins.
Yeah, it gives.
But things, I mean, there was other things like, you know, being able to customize some of the backgrounds or some of the fills for the spectrum. It's, I do accept that for Uno, some of that stuff is, I mean, you can change some of that stuff. People don't often know that you can click on, if I go back to Uno, if I go into the settings of the main panel, I can actually change some of the palettes. So let me let's see if I can hang on a minute. It's not really, I don't have any signals there, so it's not really showing up very well.
If you shoot down to medium wave, it should change the palette.
Yeah, I've got a really poor antenna. Let's see. Yeah, it's not looking great, is it, down there?
If you bring the gain up a little, the palette gain, it will definitely adjust.
Hang on a minute. I can also maybe do this. There we go. So there are some customizations in Uno you can do, but I recognise that they're quite limited.
Yeah.
And so when we get to 2.0, again, that will be something that we'll be aware of. We have some colorblind people in the beta test group who kick our backside regularly on stuff that they can't see. I'm really aware of, you know, that we've got to kind of do a better job of that going forward.
Yeah, it's not all black and white, is it? I mean, there are 50 shades of grey, as they say. So, but anyway, thanks for the presentation. I'm going to cut and run because I've got other things to do, but I'll be in touch on the support about the broken box. And
very good.
Cheers for now, guys. Thanks for listening.
Very good.
Yeah, take care. Take care. Any other questions, folks, before we wrap up?
Stephen's got his hand up.
No, I was about to say goodbye, but thank you very much, Andy.
Okay.
Take care, Stephen. See you again, I hope. Cheers.
Yeah, great evening. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Pleasure.
Okay. Well, I think then, guys, if you don't mind, I think we'll wrap up the talk from Andy, and supported ably by Mike in the background there, working his little fingers down to the bone. I think we'll do that. It's nice to be able to see so many people and if you like, support so many of you this evening. It's been great. We are producing more and more talks, and you go on Ham Radio Network, which is hotelromeonovember.world. It's the web page. So if you go on there, you'll see what's going on, etc. And just for my Andy's info, I've managed to redo one of the videos, Andy, and the second one will be done tomorrow, but put them together has taken